On this episode of Inside Boxing Live, it's a special Thanksgiving week show for you. We got a big fight between Regis Prograis and Zepeda. That's for a WBC 140-pound belt. Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis are actually fighting, we think, sometime in April. They're taking tune-up fights. And we're also going to have a fun little segment planned. Who do you want at your Thanksgiving dinner table, dead or alive, in the boxing world? Let's get into it. What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Inside Boxing Live, a product of John Boy Media. Dan Canobio joined with you always every week with Chris Algieri, former 140-pound champion, undefeated kickboxer, and a hell of a chef. This is your week, man. Thanksgiving. Big show planned, big week planned. What goes on in the Algieri house on Thanksgiving?
Massive amounts of food. We make so much food, it's insane. My brother has 4 sons, so like he has to feed. We need a lot of protein. We need a lot of protein in my house. So regardless of who's coming over as a guest, we make 2 turkeys, a ham. We do a big meaty lasagna. I mean, it's just a ton of food. And you would think it would last a few days. It doesn't. The boys are they're ravenous. So Algerians eat. Algerian men like to eat. So we crush our protein.
What do you contribute? You know, like obviously you fancy yourself as a chef. Is it your mom that does the cooking? Your dad? Do you take over?
I take over. It's myself and my brother mostly who do the cooking. My sister-in-law is a banging cook too. So she actually makes lasagna like you wouldn't believe. She's Haitian and she kills lasagna like it's crazy. Her Italian cooking is so good. Wow. I do 2 turkeys. I do double stuffed, twice baked sweet potatoes, and I do a gorgonzola and bacon Brussels sprouts. Those are like my known size that people are like, yo. And my brother will usually, he does the ham. He'll put together some other sides too. And then we have other family members who bring stuff.
So what time do you want me over?
We usually eat early, like 2, 3-ish. So come on by. But we'll be chomping and drinking beers at like noon. So.
Huntington?
Oh yeah, Huntington.
Let's go.
In the house that my father built that everybody saw on 24/7. That's where it goes down.
There's something special about coming home for the holidays. You know, it's an awesome time. Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday because it's just food and there's no gifts, there's no pressure. Everyone's in like a jovial mood. We're thankful. And then Christmas, everything becomes so stressful, especially my house with all the kids and everything.
And Thanksgiving is one day. One day. I like one day. Come over, eat, clean up. To Friday is another. It's back to reality. Go shopping, do whatever. Like one day.
Yeah, and this weekend we got some good fights. So like, it's a fun sports weekend. Like whether it's football, you know, Giants playing the Cowboys, or it's college football on Friday. Then usually there's some type of like in the last couple of years there's been like a golf, like the match. They'll do like those games. This weekend we have some boxing, like 3 really good cards. Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda is the biggest one. I would say the most significant card of the weekend. 140-pound vacant WBC belt that Josh Taylor gave up when he became undisputed. That's the biggest fight of the weekend. We will preview that in a little bit. You got Jermaine Franklin's taking on Dillian White. You got Parker versus Ryder. So there's a pretty good weekend of fights. Everyone's going to be home tuned in. So that's nice. We get into that. But the biggest news in boxing remains Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, a framework of a deal, more than a framework. Showtime announced it. Steven Espinosa announced it. Both fighters have announced it. April 15th. There's a lot of caveats to this deal. I'm sure you know this already, Chris. I'm sure a lot of fans listening or watching know this as well, but I do want to get your thoughts on it. Both fighters say the fight's happening, and it just says 2023. Reports have come out that it's April 15th. Now we know that Tank is taking a fight January 7th against Hector Garcia. Really good fight. Ryan Garcia has said, I will also be taking a tune-up in sometime in January. So there's a lot of moving parts going on here. If these fighters can lose, they can get hurt. Who knows what can happen? Boxing can get in the way. Also, worth noting, Tank Davis has a court date in February stemming from a past hit and run, which is very serious, and he could potentially facing jail time. So there's a lot going into this stew, into this mix, this potion that we want to see Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. But ultimately, this is big. The fight is penciled in for April 15th, one of the biggest fights you can make in the sport.
This is one of those fights where I've said, I'll believe it when I see them both in the ring. And like you just laid out, there's a lot of reasons for it not to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to. I mean, I think that even getting a potential date and the fact that there is a quote unquote framework is a good sign and more than I would have expected. So, I mean, fingers crossed to the boxing gods that it comes off, but there's a lot of impediments to this fight actually going off. So we will see. I'm not holding my breath, but either way, I mean, if it does happen, awesome fight.
Let's just act under the guise that it is going to happen. I understand why myself, any fight fan would be skeptical given the past couple weeks and how they've dangled fights in front of our face just to yank them away. This feels a little bit different because once Showtime put out a statement, that's when you know it's okay. All right, this feels a little different than just the fighters putting out posters and announcing a fight for themselves. But this is what we know. Is that Tank will be fighting Hector Garcia on January 7th in DC. Hector Garcia had an awesome 2022. He beat Chris Colbert. He beat Roger Gutierrez. He won a belt at 130. He's a hard-hitting Dominican puncher. He's going to give Tank a lot of issues on fight night. But like you said before we started here, Tank is Tank. What do you think of this fight? I think that is a ballsy type of tune-up. Like when I saw that being rumored, I was like, all right, he's not going to take that fight. He's going to fight, it's just a live body and, just get some rounds. But what do you think of Tank versus Hector Garcia? That's a really ballsy tune-up fight.
Yeah, initial thought, bad idea. I don't like the idea. It's too close. If they're talking about, April and this is a fight in January, it's close. 3 months is not a long time when it, comes to having a fight with someone who's for real and then recovering and then getting back into camp. So top of my head, business-wise, I don't like it. Fighter-wise, love it. I think it's a good fight. I think that Tank is best when he's put into fights. He steps up. He likes guys that bring him to him. And this Garcia fight, that's not. I mean, this fight coming up it's not a walkover by any means. He's definitely the bigger guy. He's going to be coming up. He's Tank. Tank is Tank. This is what he does. So I would assume it wouldn't be an issue, but I don't know, man. That does worry me for a lot of the reasons I said.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like a lot of the fight fans are confused. They're like, wait a second, like why are they fighting in January? Like, why are they just getting right into it? I'm fine with obviously tune-ups suck. We all know that they're kind of a waste of time, but I'm all for both of these guys being at their absolute peak in April, or even if it happens in May or June. If we think it's too close, like I was thinking about that too. Like Tank is a guy that fights 2 times a year. And he only fought once in 2022 this year. Now he's fighting in January, and then he's going to come right back in April. That's a little strange right there. But if they're all going to be at their highest, at their peak, in the ring and physically and on point, that's going to make for a better fight on fight night. But with Tank fighting Garcia on the 7th, which we both agree is a very good fight, Ryan Garcia says I will be fighting January as well. They're throwing around January 21st. I want to see what type of opponent he picks now, because are you going to take
it can't be a complete walkover because Tank's fighting somebody for real. Yeah. I like when they do the tune-ups. I know you said you don't like tune-ups. I do, because especially if you have both guys fighting, it just gets everybody jazzed up for it.
I do like that.
Yeah. And that's something that we've done throughout, throughout history. It's a great way to set up fights. I do like when guys are active. And I think even from a fighter standpoint, like, you're sharp. So, both these guys have been pretty inactive over the years. So if they're both going to get through these fights unscathed, I think by the time they do meet, they'll be that much sharper.
Yeah, tune-ups with no plan after suck. Tune-ups that lead to something. I said this when I did like a quick reaction show on a YouTube reaction video, and I was like, if you have a tune-up and it leads to nothing, then those suck. But if you give fans something to look forward to, give fans like a timeline. Right now, we know that Tank is fighting January 7th. Right now, we know that Ryan Garcia will be followed, like 2 weeks later, will be fighting. Get them ringside. Have Tank be at Ryan Garcia's fight. Have Ryan Garcia be at Tank's fight. Have them get in the ring. Build this thing up. Both these fighters seem to understand the scope of the fight, especially Ryan Garcia. He knows how big this fight is. He went on ESPN First Take. They're building the hell out of this fight, and they're gonna have the press conferences. The press conference is gonna be crazy. So let's just go all in now. Let's just make this fight the biggest fight of the year, which I already think it's going to be. Two guys that
Ryan needs this fight way more than Tank, because Tank is already world champion. He's beaten top guys. I think Ryan really needs a big name.
I agree. I think Ryan needs it more than Tank, but I also think Tank needs it too, because he is hearing how many for 2 years now. When are you gonna fight someone for real? Like
which drives me nuts. What does that mean?
He's been fighting good competition, but not great. Like
Santa Cruz. I mean, that was an amazing win, and also the way he dispatched him. He beat Pedraza, which in hindsight, in the rearview mirror, is an awesome win. Pedraza has gone on for 3 weight classes since they fought, and has been winning world titles and beating top guys.
Yeah. It's the way he wins these fights. There's no doubt about that. But
yeah,
his backers, I don't even know if Leonard Ellerbe is involved with Tank anymore. There's some rumors that he's no longer with Mayweather Promotions and just with Al and PBC, or I don't know. But Ellerbe will talk up Tank like, he should be in the top 10, but like his resume is a little bit lacking, I would say. So is Ryan Garcia's. They both need each other. They're not. These guys are tailor-made for each other, in the ring, out of the ring. They're super popular. I got people at John Boy Media office texting me, coming up to me about this fight. This is a huge crossover event, and on top of it, Chris, really going to be a good fight in the ring, because their styles are going to make for a very good fight. Both fighters go for knockouts. Ryan Garcia is a come-forward fighter. Tank is one of the best counter punchers. I got some numbers for you. Tank throws the least punches per round of any championship caliber fighter today. 34.7, but he has those string of knockouts, best counter puncher in the game. I would say top 3 at least. And on top of it, throws 34 punches around, but lands 47% of his power shots, which ranks number 2, only behind Lomachenko. That is a definition of a fighter walking a tightrope. That's exciting.
Yeah, and that's why he has the knockouts that he has. I mean, you mentioned he is the throws the least punches any championship fight. He also probably has the most knockouts of the championship fights that he's been in. He knocks out everybody, and
7-0 with 25 knockouts.
Right. And the guys that he's knocked out are legitimate world champions. That's very impressive. And he went up 2 weight classes. Mario Barrios, obviously not a top tier guy, but like he jumped up multiple weight classes to beat him and stop him. That was impressive. He's a young guy. He's a much, much bigger guy. And for him to go out there and do that, and got hit a lot in that fight, but at the end of the day, that's what Tank does. I mean, his nickname is Tank. Yeah. He can take it. He gets hit, and he comes back, and he's got the heavy artillery to end the fight, and he does.
Yeah. Ryan Garcia I would describe him as cautiously aggressive. He throws 42 punches around, which is well below the 135-pound average. Cautiously,
well, because he throws 0 jabs.
I know.
He leads with left hooks. I'm so impressed. I'm impressed is not the word. Surprised that he's gotten to the level he's at without throwing jabs. I always say, if you don't have a jab, there's a ceiling to your potential, because the jab just opens up so many things, and the best fighters in the world always have a good jab, and he has a non-existent jab. His hook is so fast that he leads with the hook. But he's had fights where that was not working, and that's always going to give him trouble, not having a jab. And a guy like Tank, granted he's a southpaw and the jab might not be the best weapon. I mean, I don't know, man. Keeping Tank at bay with just lead hooks is a dangerous game.
Well, he's going to have to. Don't say he doesn't have a jab to his face, because he gets very upset about that. He's direct messaged me about his jab numbers, that they were wrong, or I have a different type of jab. He should use the jab in this fight. He has a huge height advantage. He has a reach advantage. I've seen it. Like, Ryan Garcia's style is he's very good at managing the distance, and whether he throws the jab or not, he'll just lead that hand out there and kind of put out there as a rangefinder, then follow up with the hooks. He's going to have to do that for Tank. He's going to have to be on his game in this fight. Walking that tightrope himself. Tank walks the tightrope, but giving away rounds by just not throwing any punches, throwing 35 punches around, like he'll just give up rounds early. I can't wait to see how it plays out. What's your early leaning in this fight?
It always was Tank, and a lot of that comes off the strength of the Luke Campbell fight. Southpaw throws an overhand left, catches Ryan pulling straight back, which Ryan does a lot. And he gets dropped and literally was asleep until he hit the canvas, and then he woke up and he came back in spectacular fashion to knock out Luke Campbell, who's a very, very solid guy.
That was an awesome
fight. Awesome fight. Difference is Luke Campbell is tall and long. and Tank is not. So you got the southpaw, you got the opportunity there. But Emmanuel Togue was able to land a similar punch when he fought Ryan Garcia, and he's a much shorter guy, similar to Tank. So the blueprint is there for Tank to be able to hit him with that shot. Tank hits him with the shot Luke Campbell hits him with. Ryan doesn't get up.
Dude, imagine the
simple as that.
Imagine the scene.
Simple as that.
If Tank knocks out Ryan or Ryan knocks out Tank, like you're talking about.
I think they are knocking each other. Somebody's getting knocked out that night. I believe they're both legitimate punchers. They're both good counter punchers. They both look for knockouts. I mean, it's almost a near miss when it comes to a fight ending early. So, which is why it's also so exciting. We can't wait for this fight.
I can't wait. April 15th. I hope.
I like both guys too. I really like
they're
both
awesome
guys.
I mean, this is everything. I'm so happy. It's like the sport needs it so bad. It's just perfect time of it. Just get that news out there. Even if there's not a date, there's an agreement. Give us fans something to look forward to, something to talk about, a meaningful fight. The winner of this fight emerges as arguably, the second face of boxing or the next face of boxing. I love everything about it. And it's ironic that these four kings, put that, if you're just listening, I'm putting that in air quotes, the four kings we've heard about for years. It's ironic that these are the first two to fight each other, because for years we heard that neither of these guys are ever going to fight each other. They're the least likely to take on big fights. So shout out to Ryan Garcia. He seems like he really pushed to make this fight. And there's nothing you can say about either guy right now. They're taking big fights. Even, Tank's tune-up fight is a test. And, Ryan Garcia is a test all the way around. So looking forward to that one. This weekend, also, we got Dillian White in action. He's taking Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin is I think he's a plus 800 underdog. I would honestly consider throwing some money on that fight. Live dog. Yeah. Dillian White, we've seen him through the years, a little shop worn. I don't know where you stand on him overall as a fighter. He was looking to get Joshua again. He might be looking past Jermaine Franklin. We've seen a lot of Dillian White over the years. He can be stopped. Look what Povetkin did to him. Look what Tyson Fury did to him. I mean, this is a tough or a trap fight for Dillian White, especially if he wants that Joshua a rematch, because Franklin's pretty damn good. This is an interesting fight to watch this weekend.
It's not a trap fight. It's a crossroads fight. It's Dillian White who, like you said, long in the tooth. And I'm a big fan of Dillian White in terms of watching him, because he's very exciting. He's a lot of fun. He's got big balls. He's got a big left hook, and he throws it. And I think he can knock out most guys in the division with that punch. But he puts himself on the line. He puts himself out there. You said he can be stopped. He's been stopped by Joshua, by Tyson Fury, by Povetkin. Came back to beat Povetkin. But he's one of those guys, and he almost reminds me of a little cleaner Chisora. They're rough and tumble. They'll fight anybody. They're always in a fight. Sometimes they get starched. Sometimes they knock guys out, but they're always entertaining fights. But Dillian White is I think is cleaner, is classier. He's more as a higher level. Not an easy fight. And I think looking past Franklin is not a good idea, because this is the end all be all. Yeah. He loses this fight. Yeah. He's out of any of the big fights. If he wins the fight, he could get one of the big ones again. But does he win the fight? Who knows? Yeah,
he took the words right out of my mouth. Franklin, he wins this fight. He's in the driver's seat.
Dillian's out.
Yeah, Dillian's out, and he's in the driver's seat to get some of these big names, because it looks like Joshua wants to, just get a fight in January or February. And, Dillian White obviously is one of those domestic scraps that you've been talking about for a while, and Hearn's been talking
Having
about for a while.
Having an O in the heavyweight division is a big deal. Yeah. That is dollar signs wrapped all in that O. You have an O, and you got 20 fights. You can literally get a heavyweight championship fight of the world in heavyweight world championship fight and make big money, because heavyweight money is completely different than every other weight class.
Yeah, especially if you're fighting Joshua. I mean, you're Jermaine Franklin. I mean, he's getting biggest payday of his life to fight White. He's 21-0 with 14 knockouts. Looking at he beat Jerry Forrest by split decision.
Jerry Forrest is a hard out. He is people don't really know about him. If you don't know who Jerry Forrest is, if you don't know how he fights, he's a hard out. He's a really big guy. He's always in fights. He's competitive, and he upsets guys from time to time.
It's funny you bring up Chisora. I can't believe that Chisora, Dillian White. I mean, these guys are fighting within 2 weeks of each other. It's just Tyson Fury's fighting freaking Chisora December 3rd.
For the third time.
For the third time, when he absolutely smoked him. in the first 2 fights. But the good thing about that December 3rd date is you're gonna watch Tyson Fury. Of course, we're all gonna watch. We're gonna watch for the theatrics because it's Tyson Fury. He's an all-time great. But then at night we got Chocolatito and Estrada 3. And I cannot wait to do that show and do that preview. But that's for next week. But that's this weekend. Ryder versus Parker. We talked about this last week. This could be potential winner faces Canelo type of fight. There's some implications in that fight, especially at 168. You have quick thoughts on this fight?
I think on its head, the fight's not a great fight. It's not a bunch of well-known names. I think that, like what you said, the winner really is what matters here. But it's an interesting fight. I mean, we're going to see what Zach Parker has. We don't really know. He's not been in with top level competition yet. We haven't really seen him have to super dig deep. But what's the name? Sorry, the Gorilla, right? Is what's his nickname?
Ryder?
Ryder's nickname, isn't it the Gorilla?
I have to look that up, but he doesn't look like a gorilla. He looks like a very nice young man.
He is a very nice young man, but
I'm looking at
if you look at his physique and he's got like a big hairy chest, whatever they call it, I think his nickname is the Gorilla. But he is the Gorilla.
I have it on box rec. He's the Gorilla.
The Gorilla, yeah, like I said. So his nickname the Gorilla. He's I've called a couple of his fights. I called his fight against Mike Guy, which is a very forgettable fight.
Mike Guy.
Yeah, Mike Guy. Mike Guy's fought almost everybody. But and Ryder is dude, talk about a tough out. He is scrappy. He is physically strong. Yeah. He's short and stout for the weight class, but he's oddly effective. Very, he's awkward's not the right word, but scrappy is. He beat Daniel Jacobs his last fight. He gave him hell throughout.
He really came on in the second half of that fight.
Yes. Very, very scrappy, punching on the inside, punching really well on the inside, a little rough and tumble tactics, a little bit of dirty boxing in there. But, he's been in with some really, really top tier talent in there. His record's good.
He's 31-5, but don't let that fool you because he's fought some good opposition. He fought Daniel Jacobs, like you said. He fought Callum Smith, and a lot of people thought he beat Callum Smith.
Yeah.
The scorecards were insane. 117, 111. Terry O'Connor is one of the worst judges in boxing. A lot of people had Ryder beating Callum Smith.
He made Callum Smith look human because at the time he was looking literally unbeatable. And then he fought Ryder. Ryder made him look human. And then he fought Canelo and didn't win literally 10-second clip of that fight. So, he's moved up to 75 and looks like a killer again. So potentially it could be the weight. But either way, Ryder is a very, very solid fighter. And a win here for Zach Parker is a huge step up, and the implications moving forward are big time. And when I mean big time, I mean Moolah,
Canelo. Yeah, Parker, definitely the less experience of the two. Ryder has a way better resume, more experience,
way better. And the level of competition is you can't even compare it.
So those are some pretty decent fights this weekend. If there's implications in the Dillian White fight. It's also Dillian White. People either tune in to watch him.
Well, he's fun.
Want to see him.
He's fun to watch.
Exactly. Yeah. Same thing. Ryder Parker has that Canelo carrot being dangled in front of him. They're going to come out like gangbusters.
And it might be a good fight.
I think it will be.
Don't hold it to me, but it might be a very good fight. It might be a very entertaining fight.
It could end up being fight of the weekend. Who knows? But what I think is the fight of the weekend, at least on paper, significant wise, is Regis Prograis and Zepeda. Love
and
this
style wise, I believe. I think it's a good fight.
This is going to be awesome. 140-pound belt on the line. That's intriguing because you got a lot of these Teofimos in the division now. Jose Ramirez is floating around, of course. You got Jack Catterall and Josh Taylor will be fighting February 3rd or 4th. Taylor has a lot of the belts and is still considered the best, the cream of the crop in the division. So you got to throw in two names and Regis Prograis.
Ramirez. Don't forget Ramirez. We keep forgetting Ramirez because he's still a very live, very, very talented guy. And I believe he's still campaigning at 140. So
he can beat anyone on any given night, and he can also look pedestrian on any given night too.
He's done both.
Right. Yeah. He was supposed to be in this fight. It was supposed to be Zepeda versus Ramirez, but Jose Ramirez is getting married. He has a wedding, and he didn't want to take the fight. I mean, you gotta respect it, but I can't say I've ever heard that.
Women weaken legs.
Yeah, we talked about this last. First of all, our MythBusters episode had a lot of reactions. The Mike Tyson one spawned a whole debate. People were dragging me. People were dragging me because they thought that I said that Mike Tyson is not an all-time great when it was literally just a topic. It's just and we were going to debate it. So I had to then put out a video yesterday to say like where we're actually, our conversation is very nuanced and it's very balanced, where we pretty much go through the whole thing. But
don't do that. Let them speculate.
I don't need anyone saying like,
let them freak out.
Dan doesn't think Mike Tyson, like, no, like there's certain things I'm okay with people thinking my opinions are, but like with Tyson, like, yeah, the guy's, I don't
Mike's
gonna
call you up
and be like,
debate. Dan, I thought we were friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like he did come on the show, and he is a hero of mine. So, but that was a fun one. Yeah, Jose Ramirez is getting married, so he's out of this fight.
Well, congratulations, Jose. That's
exactly a big one for him. There you go. Regis Prograis, Zepeda, two names that all boxing fans know. Two fighters that have taken the long road back to a world title shot. You know, Prograis was a title holder. He lost that to Josh Taylor. Zepeda fought Jose Ramirez 3-4 years back. I think it was 2019. Came up just short against Jose Ramirez. So these two guys have worked their way back. They're hungry. 50 combined knockouts in their 62 fights. Obviously, we've seen Zepeda with those first-round knockouts. We've seen Zepeda in that Baranchich fight. Regis Prograis is one of the most powerful guys at 140. This is a really good fight.
Yeah, it's a good fight, and it's one of those fights that it's a throwback fight. It's one of those fights where it's very easy for both of these guys to avoid each other, but they're just below those top-tier championship level guys, so they have to fight each other to get there. So I like that. Not to say that they're not at that level, but they both been there. They both have been up there. Prograis actually been a world champion, but he lost at the highest level when he fought Taylor. Zepeda has lost when he stepped up to those highest levels. So now they've kind of been knocked down a rung. They got to fight each other to get to the top. That's what boxing is. You got to beat the man to be the man. You got to get the chance to get the title shot. And it's one of those fights. And then just stylistically, it's an awesome fight. I know Zepeda very, very well. I said that on air before. I've sparred with him probably 50, 60, 70 rounds. I had him as my sparring partner in camp when I fought Pacquiao. Wonderful guy. I talk to him all the time. This is a big, big opportunity for him. I would love to see him be a world champion. You know, he's never been a world champion, even as good as he is. He's got a ton of fights. You know, and I think in terms of their styles and what they can bring to the table, Zepeda's a bit of the wild card because his style's awkward, right? He's got that switching stances. He's got power, but sometimes it doesn't seem like he does. He starches guys out of nowhere. You know, he's aggressive, but he's also got a really good distance and counter punching. Very, very awkward, weird style, which is why he got used by a lot of fighters, myself and Tim Bradley included, when they were fighting Pacquiao. He was like the prototype Pacquiao sparring partner that we all hired.
Oh wow!
When you had to fight Pacquiao, he was the guy. I brought him into camp. I put him up in a hotel for months at a time. He saw him 3 times a day. You know, fantastic. Him and his team, his brother. Prograis is, like you said, he's one of the physically strongest guys in the division. You just look at his body type. He's short. He's stocky. He's got that southpaw stance. He's got a lot of knockouts. He's sturdy. He's very, very sturdy. So that's going to be the big difference between the two, because we've seen Zepeda down multiple times with high-level guys and low-level guys. So the sturdiness, and I think a lot of that has to do with his style and the angles and switching sides, whatever. They're kind of opposite in that in terms of that. Zepeda's busier. Zepeda's quicker. But I think Prograis is probably the better puncher. He's definitely the more durable guy. And then when it comes to their output and their endurance, it's kind of a mishmash, because there are times where Zepeda is very, very busy, and there are times where he slows down. And Prograis, we've seen him. I mean, he knocks out most of the guys he fights, especially early on. But late in fights, you know, like with Taylor, for example, it seemed like he was running out of gas a little bit. So it's interesting to see how this fight will play out if it goes into the second half of the fight. Yeah,
Prograis is the busier of the two. He throws 62 punches per round. Fresher. I think with Prograis though, he's 33. not old, not young, but he fights in a way. But he hasn't been busy. He hasn't been busy lately. Well, I'll get into his 3 fights since the Taylor fight. he had a first of all, he had a rough come up where
Yeah.
he didn't get a lot of opportunities despite being very talented, didn't get a lot of slots, didn't get he had to legitimately earn his way to that title shot in the World Boxing Super Series to get Taylor. And that was a really close fight. Like Regis Prograis could have got his hand raised at the end of that fight. But the point I'm trying to get at is 33 years old and he fights in a style that you probably would not teach, with the hands down, puts his face in there, kind of, that could come back to bite him a little bit if your reflexes aren't quite there. I don't know yet if that's the case because we just haven't really seen Prograis enough in there. And his last 3 fights since the Taylor loss, he's 3-0, 3 stoppages. Juan Heraldez, Ivan Redkach, Tyrone McKenna. That's not a murderer's row. He made a lot of money in those fights, which that's awesome because, like we just said, had a rough come up. Didn't really get onto the spotlight until he was in his late 20s. And I know Triller threw a shit ton of money at him in that Redkach fight. They threw a lot of money at him to fight McKenna over in Dubai or something like that. So that's good, that's fine, but there's a catch-22 to that. You get a lot of money to fight in Ivan Redkach, but it kind of maybe slows your development, or it's not iron sharpens iron. I really believe in that. And then on the other side of things, you got Zepeda, who has been fighting top level talent, whether or just about being more busy. 5 fights in that same span. That war with Barancic could come back to haunt him too, because that could take a lot out of you, man. That was one of the most brutal fights I've ever seen, and Barancic is definitely not the same. But it seems like Zepeda came out of that obviously the winner and a little more fresh, because when he knocked out, was it Josue Vargas? I don't think anyone saw that coming. So he
I did. I did.
Okay, you saw it coming. But first round,
I was not. I'll tell you right now, I wasn't surprised. I was telling people asking me fight weekend, and I know Josue. I actually sparred with him a week and a half. I was his last sparring session before he fought Zepeda. He came down to my camp in South Florida and we sparred. And he's super sharp, but I've been in the ring with both guys, and I know how good Zepeda really is. And he's got that. He's very, very snappy, especially early on, and he's got a great judge of distance. So and I know that Josue, he's young, man. He gets ahead of himself at times, and that's exactly what happened in the fight. He got ahead of himself. He put his face over his front foot and he got clipped. And and that happens to young fighters. Yeah, that too. But he there was openings there, and that was a fight. And taking nothing away from Josue and his talent, it was just the seasoned veteran pulling a veteran move, and it was the young guy just getting ahead of himself. That's exactly what happened in that fight. So I was not that surprised.
Have we put any stock into the type of camp that Zepeda has had? There was that TMZ report 2 weeks ago that he punched some guy at the gym. There was such a weird story, whatever. That's not that big of a deal. And then
it surprises me though, because he's a very cool, calm. I mean,
someone must have really bugged him.
We're all fighters and we're all fiery. I wouldn't be surprised though if he had a smart manager or someone around who got some Team Z guys to make some story up, because hey, that happens too.
Right. This is an independent pay-per-view. This isn't this is that Marv Nation pay-per-view. It's not backed by any of these big time promoters, and who knows, they're gonna drum up some type of, it made the headlines and I retweeted it. I fell for it. And I said Zepeda's getting some extra work in punching a guy at the gym. That's literally his job. He's supposed to punch people at the gym. But then this week, on top of it, gets into a car accident. He's fine. Brother has to go to the hospital, who's also his manager, on the way to a media event. So that's like a pretty rough and tumble little camp. You're a fighter, you know this. You want your camps to be smooth. You want your camps to be quiet. You don't want TMZ headlines. You don't want car accidents.
They almost never are smooth or quiet.
I just assume so. I don't know.
Yeah, you would like them to be. Yeah, that's the best laid plans, but it almost never happens. I mean, just like you never go into a fight fully healthy.
Well, should you be in like solitude? Isn't that why they go up to Big Bear? Or Marvin Hagler said it was just, he went up and wanted to just be away from everything and just
sure.
At least wanted to go that way, right?
Yeah, shit happens. I mean, people have lives, people have families, people have people that rely on them, and that doesn't go away when you're in camp. I can go away to Salibu and go in the mountains, but like if I have kids or family or my cousin gets in trouble, like, you can cut that out. Some guys are like that. Marvin Hagler, put him in the penitentiary. That was his, what he called his training camp. Sure, but hey, can everyone do that? Can you just cut off everybody? It depends who you have around you. It depends what kind of team you have. It depends how your family's like, and they understand what you're doing. It depends how your lady is, because that can be a big issue too. One of the biggest issues that fighters have is the female counterparts that they have in their lives. So there's a lot of stresses that can come from sources that you would think would not be an issue.
Yeah, interesting. I think with this fight too that I like is like both these guys are like fans like these fighters. They're two fan-friendly guys. They're two fan favorites.
Fighters like these guys too.
Right,
fighters like these guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Prograis has so much respect. I've seen it like firsthand. I was at Wilder Fury 2 post-fight party. Teofimo and Prograis were chatting it up. Everyone was like just respects the guy because, like you said, didn't have the prototypical come up. Has a reputation of being a wild man. Like even the Charlo brothers, who are wild in their own regard. I think they all grew up together in Houston. The Charlo brothers said that Prograis was the craziest, wildest guy that they've ever met growing up.
That's awesome.
Like
I mean,
nuts.
He shows it when he fights too, like because he's so calm. Like he's one of those guys. He's in the fire and he's calm. He's just like, all right, well, I've seen this. I've seen worse. I've been there. Let's go.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He stepped to the line. Step to the line. Let's go.
He has had a rough come up. Not just, I've said it like 4 times now, but not just like in terms of being recognized in the sport, but like displaced from Hurricane Katrina. Grew up in Louisiana. I think he went from Louisiana after Katrina to Houston, and that's where he linked up with the Charlos. And I know from when he was promoted by Lou DiBella, who's a good friend of mine. Just Lou being just so worried all the time. Because Prograis would be posting stuff in Brazil. His wife's Brazilian. Like jumping into like rivers and like fighting animals, swimming with alligators, ATVs. Like he's a wild. He lives life hard. Regis Prograis. I mean, this is maybe why he's so respected, and he's a man's man, a fighter's fighter.
Yeah, I mean, we listen. Every one of us is crazy in one way or another, and however you let that manifest as it was out there, whether you let people know or not. I know plenty of guys who are angels in the public, and they are complete monsters and savages, in their daily life or in their gym life. So it's more common than you would think, but he seems like he's a cut above the rest.
I'm just happy to see him back in a big fight. I've been calling for him to be in a big fight. I think all boxing fans have. He worked his way up to that Taylor fight. I thought from that moment on he was going to be a star. I thought maybe he'd go up to 147 and maybe fight Crawford. Because Prograis was working with Top Rank and he was maybe like a promotional free agent after he left DiBella, and his career went in a different direction. He made some good money, but those aren't some big names. Those aren't big fights at all. So he wins this fight, or Zepeda wins this fight, they're in a great spot because they can unify with Taylor. They can fight Teofimo Lopez. Devin Haney has talked about going up to 140. Tank going up to 140. Brian Garcia 140. Not in addition to the names that are already at 140, like Subriel Matias, and there's so many I'm forgetting. Gary Antoine Russell. Like this is a loaded division, and it's nice to see 2 guys that deserve it. It's nice to see 2 guys battling for a vacant title. 2 southpaws. Let's go through your categories here for Prograis and Zepeda. Who do you give the power edge to?
I give it to Prograis. I think that he's physically stronger, and in terms of one punch power, he's got that. Although Zepeda has power too, and he knocks guys out. He's more of like a shocking puncher, and I think that Prograis is just a thudder. He's going to come in, he's going to land hard shots. He's got heavier hands. He's this. But yeah, I say power goes to Prograis.
Who has the better chin of the 2?
Prograis again. I think he's the more durable guy. I said that at the top. I don't think he's ever been down.
I've never seen him down.
I don't think he's ever been down. Very rarely. I don't think I've ever seen him hurt either. Zepeda's been down several times. Like I said, even with top level guys, lower level guys. The Branchek fight, obviously, they were knocking each other down every 30 seconds. So not that Branchek can't punch, but he's been down before, and obviously the chin is not like Prograis.
All right, endurance. Who are you giving that edge to?
So I got this one a tie, but I could be swayed. I think because Zepeda has probably been more rounds, more times, but I think, Prograis stops a lot of guys. He's got a lot of knockouts and hasn't had those high level fights that have gone the distance other than the Taylor fight. And I've seen him get tired of fights, but I've also seen Zepeda fade in fights as well. But I think Zepeda has gotten better as he's moved up in weight from 35 to 40. I think as he's starting to understand his body and got a little more confidence in his conditioning, because that was an issue that I always spoke to him when we were at camp together. He was always worried about his gas tank. He's shown much better gas tank in the last couple fights and the last couple of years. So that one's kind of up in the air for me.
At least with Prograis, the fight with Taylor, he was in the phone booth the entire fight. I mean, that was pretty impressive. That was a grueling fight. But
people don't understand how much moving takes your gas away.
No, that's what I meant. Yeah, I meant that. Yeah. Like that was incredible. Okay. Like to be in that close to throwing punches for 12 rounds in a phone booth, that showed me like I had questions about Prograis heading into that Taylor fight, because we just haven't seen him against top opponents. But after that, I was like, all right, this guy can go 12. He can go 12 with a elite
but
fighter.
Taylor decided to stand right in front of him, like you said, and fight in a phone booth. And a lot of times you got a guy who's moving and you're going after him. That can be very tiring. Yeah. Traversing a ring is very tiring. So, and I thought that's kind of my point. I think people forget that moving is really tiring. And if you stand in a phone booth and just bang away, punching's one thing, moving's another. And I think with Zepeda, you're going to have some footwork too.
How about hand speed?
I would go with Zepeda on that one. He's longer, he's quicker, he switches sides. Like I said, I've been in the ring with him. He's definitely quick.
Finally, Kraft,
I lean towards Zepeda just because his style is awkward. He's got that weird in and out, the switching sides, the angles. Prograis, if you goad him into a fight, he's absolutely willing to do that. If you would say, hey, come meet me in the center, he's stepping to the line. And Zepeda can play that game and then switch it at any time. And I'm not sure I've really seen that from Prograis so much.
All right, so 5 categories.
Although he does have good boxing. Yeah.
5 categories. 2 have gone to Prograis, 2 have gone to Zepeda, 1 tie. I mean, that's
why this is the fight we were excited. Yeah, exactly. That's why we want to see this fight.
50-50 fight. I'm leading Prograis by a decision. I think it's gonna go. I think it'll go the distance. I just think he's a little fresher, like we talked about. I just think he's got a few more facets to his game, and maybe a little more explosive. But yeah, I think Prograis is gonna win. How about you?
Yeah, my head is with Prograis. My heart's with Zepeda, though. I know Zepeda, like I said, I want him to be a world champion. I want him to get there. He's a great kid. But yeah, like all the things that you said in terms of just crunching the numbers, and I know you're a numbers guy, I think Prograis should be the leading guy in the fight.
All right, great fight. I think it's a Fight TV pay-per-view. Could be wrong. Marv Nation. It's not your traditional, like ESPN pay-per-view or PVC or one of those. It's an independent pay-per-view. I'll be working in CompuBox that night. I'll be busy on Saturday with all the boxing. So that is the big one this weekend. Finally, before we say goodbye and you go on your way for Thanksgiving, this is something I've done in the past. I'll put on Twitter, and it's always fun. If you could have Thanksgiving dinner with any 4 boxers or boxing personalities, dead or alive, who would it be?
I love this question. I'm trying to pull mine up.
You're chopping it up. You're cooking for them. You're making your double cooked potatoes. You're making your turkey. Your maybe your sister-in-law makes a nice lasagna for Burt Sugar. And then you guys are sitting at the table and you're going to sit for 3-4 hours. Who do you want at that table?
I got 2 live ones, 2 dead ones.
Okay.
So for live ones, Bob Arum. I love being around Bob. I've spent a ton of time around Bob, which I'm very, very thankful for, between fighting for Top Rank and commentating fights for Top Rank. I spent a ton of time around Bob. I mean, in terms of stories, when that guy holds court, everyone is just everybody. I've never seen anyone not just shut up just when Bob's talking.
Isn't it wild how sharp he is too?
So sharp. Memory like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the guy is sharp as his attack. Incredible. So Bob's got to be there. He's gonna tell the stories when he talks. Everybody's gonna listen. So it's Bob's got to be there. Yeah. The other live one is Chavez Sr.
Oh God.
And I would not have said that until I called his last fight when he fought Camacho Jr. And we were in the fighter meetings, and he was just telling story after story. He is funny, gregarious. I mean, he hugged everybody in the room. He patted me on the head. He asked me what my next fight was. Like, he loves boxing. He loves boxing so much. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air. Honestly, a guy who's been in this sport that long and is still so passionate. I want that guy over for dinner.
That's interesting because like he obviously doesn't speak English, and a lot of like American fans don't really know his personality at all. So that's interesting.
Yeah, my Spanish is conversational. I'm not great, but I'm not that bad, and I could hang and I could talk with him, and I could understand what things he's saying. So we did have a little bit of a rapport. He knew exactly what, like I said. He asked me right away.
That's sick.
Gave me a hug and patted me. I was over the moon when that happened, because I've been a huge fan for.
Also, Aaron brings the green and Chavez brings the white. If you know what I mean.
If you know, everybody at home, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So that's another added incentive to have both those guys there.
It's gonna be a wild night. And now the posthumous Gene Tunney.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to talk to that guy. I mean, he's very buttoned up, former military, world champion, incredible tactician, very, very smart. If a lot of people probably don't know, nutrition was a big deal for him. So I would love to talk to him about his training methods, about nutrition, about his discipline, because in that sense, him and I have a lot of things in common, and I would love to kind of chop it up with him. Even though I'm sure he'd be pretty tight-lipped at dinner. Maybe I can.
He'll be the listener. He'll be the quiet one.
Definitely be the quiet one of the group. And then Eddie Futch.
Nice.
I just think whatever gem that he drops is going to be priceless. And anything he wants to say, he doesn't want to say, whatever. I think I would just being in the presence of that man would probably be a highlight of my life and my career, and have him around would be awesome.
I think my dad worked a few fights with him early on, and he had a lot of good things to say about him. That is a dinner right there. Bob Arum, Chavez Sr., Gene Tunney, Eddie Futch.
Yeah.
And Chris Algieri. Just chopping it up. Love that.
Chopping it up. Eating my food. I would love that.
All right, here's mine. I'm going Burt Sugar.
That was my honorable mention.
Right.
Burt
He's
Sugar.
bringing the cigars, amazing stories. No one can tell a story like Burt Sugar. Just a historian, and he's bringing that aspect to the table because you want to hear stories, behind the scenes stuff. In addition, obviously he knows his boxing, huge boxing historian, just all around friggin' character. Bob Arum's at my table too. I think Bob and Burt can play off each other. There'd be a lot of arguments. There'd be a lot of stories that they were both together on. There'd be a lot of differences. There'd be a lot of agreements. They would just
the arguments would be great.
The arguments would be just as good as the stories. And I think that's like the historical aspect of the table. Then for fighter wise, I'm taking Toro Gotti, wild man. Obviously my favorite fighter of all time, but also one of the craziest partiers in the history of boxing. And who knows what we can get in afterwards. I know it's just a dinner, but Gotti will show up.
Prison is what you get into afterwards with him.
Yeah.
Because you're going to jail.
Pretty much. I mean, someone to bail us out. But Gotti can bring some Italian food. He can bring some French food, obviously, because he's both. And he's just a great guy, and I would like to hang out with Toro Gotti. Did meet him a few times growing up, but never really got to hang out with him. And then lastly, at the table, can you imagine this? I went back and forth on my last one. I had Camacho. I thought of some other wild guys, but I'm going with Bernard Hopkins. Bernard has been through a lot. He's a great talker. I interviewed him earlier this year. It was one of my favorite interviews I ever did because I got into the mind of him. I think he's one of the best mental games. He got inside the head of his opponent like no other. And I said a line to him in the interview. I said, "You thrive off of chaos." And he got taken back, and he's like, Who told you? Who told you that? He was like, "How did you know that?" My sister says that all the time about me. Like, I just want Hopkins there. I think he's had an awesome career, and he's been through so much. He's seen it all. I think him and Arum would get into some conversations and some disagreements and Sugar. Yeah, so I got Burt Sugar, Bob Arum, Toro Gotti, Bernard Hopkins.
I've had a couple meals with Bernard, and it's a lot. Talks a lot. You're not going to get a whole lot in. Also, his diet is very, very specific. He's a very, very clean eater, even to this day.
Yeah.
He has a lot to say about that as well. But yeah, you're right. He likes to make people uncomfortable. That chaos is like, he likes to say things that are going to be jarring. Because I was watching very first time I sat down to eat with him. I look what people eat because I'm a nutritionist by trade, and obviously it's something that's very important to me. So I'm watching him eating a lot of fruit and not a whole lot else, no carbs, no meat. And I go, hey Bernard, don't mind me saying I've been watching your food choices, and I said, who taught you how to eat? Without even looking up, he goes, the penitentiary.
Yeah.
Waits, waits, and then looks at me. He said it and then looked up to see what my reaction was gonna be, very intense. And I was like, ah, all right. And I'm waiting for more. And he's still staring at me. And I was that's where he's trying to make me uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh well, that makes sense. Tell me more. And then he just goes into discipline, and he was noticing that when the guys, they would eat the double cheese and the this and this and that they would get fat and their body would get soft and they get weak.
Wow.
And he's like, I need to be strong in here. So he's like, I watched how people ate and I saw who was strong and who was not. And this is how I figured out how to eat. And I was like, that's amazing. Who understands his environment and is looking and trying to, he's basically trying to make himself hard to kill. And I was like, I respect the hell out of that. And it takes a lot of discipline to do that. So
what about in the interview as well? I was doing these interviews with, it was last January, so there wasn't a lot to talk about in the sport. There wasn't a lot of big fights. So I had him on 1 week. I had De La Hoya on 1 week. I had Sugar Ray Leonard on 1 week. And it was awesome. I would spend the whole week researching their lives, watching every documentary, reading up on them. And Hopkins obviously went to prison, where he learned how to eat apparently, and also how to box. And he was telling me about the prison boxing circuit. A lot of times there wouldn't even be ropes. It would just be a mat. And they would drive him into other penitentiaries, and they would drive to his, and it was insane. That's why he is who he was. When he came out of prison, he was just light years ahead of his opponents, mentally, because he just went through penitentiary, boxing circuit, just living in prison, and obviously became a better person because he didn't go back and became super successful. But man, he was awesome. What about that? What about when he fought Trinidad and they were adding the Puerto Rico, the lead up to it, and he threw the flag? I brought that up to him. He said it was a big. He said he regrets it. He said he almost didn't make it out alive, but he said I had to do that because I had to get inside of his mind. I had to show him that he was soft in his own country. I was like, holy shit.
Well, it was one of my favorite fights and something that I talk about from a technical standpoint so much because he took the left hook away from Trinidad. If you really watch that fight, it's all about the footwork. And he realized that Trinidad had a tell before he threw the left hook. He would step his foot in a power position and he was ready to throw that shot. So when he saw he did that, he actually stepped into the lion's mouth, stepped into his left hook. He snuffed it, caught it on his wrist, and came back on a right hand, which is a very unorthodox thing to do, to catch and shoot off a left hook and step into it. Stepped into such a powerful punch and then clipped him on his chin, pushed him over, knocked him over there. And that was it. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful shot. And he said, he always knew, he's like, he's going to let me know when his power is coming by his feet. And I just knew not to be there because his punch, his left hook was too hard. So he knew that he respected it, but he also knew how to beat it.
Dude, he was just awesome. He was one of those interviews that I just absolutely loved, and a fighter that I love watching. So I went to a lot of his fights. He fought a lot in AC, so that was an easy trip for us. Yeah, him at that table.
We have the same accountant, and we shared the same lawyer for a number of years. So I've been around Bernard quite a few times, and
he's been through his fair share of lawsuits too, Hopkins.
Yeah, him and I both.
Yeah.
I've been a very litigious young fighter. It's worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, if you're a
worked
boxer,
out well for him too.
You've been seeing your fair share of lawsuits, but
a lot of guys are afraid to. They don't want to spend the money, and I think that can be a mistake.
Don't want to sit out either, too, right? Andre Ward sat out for almost 2 years. Mikey Garcia almost sat out 2 years when he was fighting with Top Rank, and when Ward was fighting with Goosen, and a lot of fighters don't want to do that. You sat out too.
Sat out for multiple years based exactly on that. And I actually spoke to both those guys' lawyers, Mikey Garcia, Andre Ward. It was eating me alive to be out of the ring during that time. But I knew that it was important to do that to respect not only myself and my career, but my ability, and to make sure that my bank account was swole.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. The horns outside here in New York City indicate that's the end of the show. That was a fun one. Big fights this weekend all over the board. Hope everyone enjoys it. Hope everyone has a great holiday. We'll be back next week to preview Tyson Fury versus Derek Chisora, but more importantly, Chocolatito versus Estrada 3. Yes. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the year. This was a fun one. As always, folks, keep your hands up, protect yourself at all times. Stay out of those DMs. We out.